So when I graduated from school, I hit the ground at a dead sprint. I was so hungry to work that I kind of pushed it a little too hard. I lived at home with my parents, and that was a good thing because I could work really hard without thinking about paying rent, even though I was paying student loans. But the bad thing about that was that I could work really hard, and I didn't really know moderation yet because I just wanted so badly to work. Oops. I was sending out about 200 emails a day. This is just a couple of them. I went back and screenshotted. And I also had a part-time job, so I was really realistic about just getting my feet on the ground. And every time I got a response from someone, it was just that endorphin that encouraged me to just keep working really, really hard. And I was probably working at least 15 hours a day. I'd wake up in the morning and I'd start working, and I'd work until I couldn't keep my eyes open anymore, which is extremely unhealthy, and I don't recommend it. I definitely wouldn't do it any differently. I feel really good about where I am now, but I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. Finally, I was able to quit my job after only 8 months and go full-time freelance illustration, which was really overwhelming and really exciting all at the same time. I had the perks of, I work predominantly in editorials, so the nice thing about working with magazines is that it kind of advertises itself. So I didn't really have to do a lot of, personal PR because it was out there in print. So the work kept coming that way. But I was neglecting myself as a person and using work to hide from the anxieties that I had about life and friends and family and everything else. And I've always really struggled with my own anxiety and getting it under control. And when I was a kid, I dealt with it a lot differently. And here as an adult, I was using work to hide from everything that was bugging me about everything else in my life. And so I decided to turn to something that was really not up my alley. I'm not a super spiritual person, but I decided to try mindfulness meditation, which, for those of you who aren't familiar, mindfulness is this idea that you confront the emotions that you're having right when they're happening instead of pushing them away. So, and that has to do a lot, too, with the things that you do in your life on a regular basis, Oh, I have to call my mom. Oh, I need to make that appointment, instead of saying, I'll do it tomorrow, and pushing it away and letting it, fester and create this great ball of anxiety to really confront it head on. And even though I don't practice meditation so much anymore, I think that those principles can really be helpful in the way that you live your life. At the time, I was working so much that I started to feel this really intense pain in my drawing hand, and I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I wouldn't be able to sleep because I was in so much pain. And I do all my work by hand, for those of you that have seen it. And so this was a little bit scary, but I kind of just pushed through it because I think that my hunger for this recognition and to work, and I absolutely loved my job, and that was overpowering, the physical pain that I had, and But it got so bad that it started in my elbow and would shoot up my hand and move from my pinky throughout my hand until I started getting these shoots of nerve pain. And for any of you who haven't experienced nerve pain, it's incredibly painful, and to the point where I just couldn't draw anymore. And so I went to a hand surgeon who told me that I had acquired an injury that people 4 times my age acquire over a lifetime. And he was shocked that at my age I was experiencing something that he'd seen in people older than my parents. So it took a medical professional to tell me that I needed to slow down. Oops. And I think that was sort of the tipping point for me. I'd had my family and my friends telling me that maybe I should have a bit of a more balanced life, and when my friends would tell me that, I was kind of insulted, and when my parents would tell me, I just ignored them. And when a doctor told me, I saw that this person has no investment really in me personally except for my health, so maybe I should listen to them. And I was sitting in the physical therapy office in this hand surgeon's unit, and they were teaching me how to do all these exercises, and I looked around the room, and there's all these photos on the wall of famous athletes and accomplished orchestra musicians and chefs, and I saw that the one thing that we had in common was that all of us had neglected ourselves, and we'd all ended up famous in a hand surgeon's office, which isn't the place that you really want to be recognized. So at this point, I knew that I had to reassess and sort of back up and get my priorities in order. And I saw this a few months ago, and I really could have used it at the time, but I think that it applies to anyone at any time in your life, and that's to make a list of things that make you happy, and make a list of things you do every day, and compare those things and adjust accordingly. And so I decided at this point that I needed to remind myself why I wanted so badly to be an illustrator in the first place. So I needed to go back to, what made me excited to draw, and I decided to apply for a residency called Cabin Time. I'm sure you guys recognize a lot of those people, and some of them are here today. I didn't know any of these people when I applied, and I just thought it would be a really good break from all the work that had been all that I was doing for all this time. And so we went to Minnesota, in this little parcel of land, totally isolated from everything, like no cell phone service, and spent 16 hours in the car with perfect strangers. And by the time we got there, I know some of you guys know Brandon Satterley, but he was driving the car that I was in, and we pulled up to our first campsite after being in the car together for 16 hours. And he just stopped the car and turned around and looked at all of us and just said, "This is perfect." And it totally was, because I realized that I was missing something that I didn't even know I was missing, which was having a place and people who were as excited as I was about what they were doing, but we could do things that weren't work together. So that was kind of, the jumping off point that helped me realize that I needed to make this part of my life on a regular basis. Shortly after that, I had a similar but a little bit different approach to getting outside for work. This is back when Tumblr was like all the rage, before Instagram. Everyone had a Tumblr. And I had put a bunch of my work on Tumblr, and this guy who is pretty predominant member of the startup community in San Francisco commented on one of my pieces and said, "I really like your work. If you're ever in San Francisco, let me know." And I just, at that moment, just decided I was going to say yes. And my sister was going to San Francisco, so I said, "Okay, I'm going to go, and I'm going to, go meet this person and see what they're all about." And so I met him, and we clicked, and I met all his coworkers, and he showed me he ran a DIY organization for kids, and everyone there was just like a grown-up kid, and it was another one of those situations where I had met these people who, were excited and eager to just, be themselves and try new things. And when we walked up to their offices, two of the guys were standing outside. They had built stomp rackets, and they were just like trying out their stomp rackets. These are like 30-year-old men. So I was like, yeah, these are my new people now. So after that, it kind of blended into my work, and my personal life and my work life sort of became balanced in this mix together. And he ended up inviting me to some of his private property in upstate New York to draw a map and a field guide, and I got to stay there for 5 days with him and his family and friends, and we walked the property, and we went and found mushrooms and frogs, and it was awesome. And it was exactly what I needed, and I just decided, like, okay, if I didn't think already, now I know that this needs to be something that I do all the time. So I decided, okay, I can't just travel all the time, like that. I'm an illustrator. I can't, that's not in the budget. So I figured out that, okay, so once a year I'm gonna do this for myself. And what are those requirements gonna be for that kind of thing? So the first thing was I needed to be somewhere where there was no competition. I'm a pretty competitive person, probably why I worked so hard from the beginning, and competition was something that was going to keep me from really being able to be present in where I was. And it needed to be somewhere new, somewhere brand new. And there's this guy, Gavin Peter-Pinney, hope I said his name right. He's the founder of the Cloud Appreciation Society, which they just look at clouds. And he has a TED Talk, and it's awesome, and you should all watch it. But one of the things that he said was that you don't need to go across the world to be surprised. And I just really liked that idea that, somewhere new could just be an hour away from your house. And I also decided that I needed to make it real. So I'm really good at backing out of stuff. So I needed to tell people that I was going to do this. I needed to say it out loud. And I needed to, if that meant, buying a ticket or sending an application, something where people were going to expect me to show up and follow through. And the last thing was that I needed to do it alone. And so these are a few things that I went to Rabbit Island, which is a small island on Lake Superior, for a month. That was the first one I did. I didn't have a lot going on at the time, so taking a month off was okay, but I definitely paid for it later. And last summer I went to, I did a residency in Zion National Park and Bryce Canyon, which is, the desert in the summer is insane. And so that was definitely a new experience. And this is being surprised in life. So my dog seeing a cow and being stoked. So back to the importance of doing it alone. I think that no matter what we do in life, when we do it with things that are familiar, we are less apt to embrace the unfamiliar. So that meant not doing these things with, your best friend or even someone that you kind of know, because those comforts can be a crutch. And I think that those experiences that you're going to have are what is going to spur your creativity and make you excited to make work. When I was on Cabin Time, the work was just pouring out of me. I couldn't stop drawing. I was drawing the whole time, and I wasn't even at a shortage for ideas. In times when I was working, where I just had to pull it out of myself, these were situations. And every time I've gone somewhere, it's always with people I don't know, I feel like I'm learning all these new things about the place and the people, and the work is just coming out. So I think that being alone is a very unpopular idea. I think we associate it with things like being abandoned or, left, and it's really not that. I think there's something so important in being comfortable in the company of yourself. I think everyone needs to try this. And so I think at this point, a lot of you, well, maybe some of you are probably like, okay, that sounds really awesome, but I don't have any time to do that. I don't have time. I have work, I have kids, I have things to do. And okay, I bet that you have at least one day in your calendar that looks like this. And so let's plan this together. Give me 2 days, 3 months from now, that look like this. Those are going to be for you, just you. And go do something that maybe you've been wanting to try, or maybe just one overnight somewhere new. And I guarantee you that it helps us just rejuvenate as creative people and feel inspired again. I think you really need to walk away from everything to be able to feel that inspiration again. And just making time to do this and leaving everything behind, make sure that you've wrapped up all your work and tell everyone, and not neglecting the rest of your life. But in the meantime, just practicing being alone is really helpful. So something that I like to do, once a month, I go out to dinner by myself, which is really scary. I did it last week, and I sat in my car in front of the restaurant for 5 minutes, and then I walked to the restaurant, and even as I was walking in the door, I was still like, am I gonna do this? Am I gonna do this? And then until I said, just one, please, then I knew I was gonna have to do it. And when I sat down, I felt so good. I felt like I had really done something and accomplished something, and I felt comfortable and relaxed, and I felt like I just got to be with myself, and that's really when we can be our truest selves and get to know our truest selves. And I made this last year when I was feeling really, really bad, and I think we forget that it's so easy to be our own toughest critic in our work and our lives, but it's so easy to forget to be our own biggest fan too, and that's just as important. And one more quote from this guy, Gavin. Gazing at the clouds is a pointless activity, and that is exactly why it is so important. Thank you.